What Manchester United need to win the 2026-27 Premier League? I think Manchester United can win the Premier League, not because I think they're already the best team in England, and not because I'm going to sit here and pretend Arsenal, Manchester City, or anyone else is suddenly going to disappear. I'm saying it because I looked at the numbers. And when you look at what the last 5 Premier League champions actually did over 38 games, you start to see a very clear pattern. And that pattern tells us exactly what Manchester United need to change if they want to go from finishing third to actually winning the title. Because last season, United finished third with 71 points, 20 wins, 11 draws, 7 defeats. That's a respectable season, but it's not a title-winning season. And that's the gap we need to close. So let's forget the hype for a moment. Let's forget individual players. Let's forget transfer rumors. Let's look at the numbers. Because the numbers are brutally honest. Over the last 5 Premier League seasons, the champions were Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. And their records tell us something very interesting. In 2021-22, Manchester City won the league with 93 points, 29 wins, 6 draws, 3 defeats. In 2020-22-23, City won again with 89 points, 28 wins, 5 draws, 5 defeats. In 2023-24, City finished with 91 points, 28 wins, 7 draws, 3 defeats. Then Liverpool won the league in 2024-25 with 84 points, 25 wins, 9 draws, 4 defeats. And last season, Arsenal won the title with 85 points, 26 wins, 7 draws, 5 defeats. So here's where I need to correct something that you might hear people say. It's not actually true that a Premier League champion must lose 4 games or fewer. The last 5 champions lost 3, 5, 3, 4, and 5 games. And it's also not true that champions normally have 6 draws or fewer. Liverpool had 9 draws, Manchester City had 7, Arsenal had 7. So the real lesson isn't some magical rule that says 4 defeats and 6 draws. It's more interesting than that. The real lesson is this. You have to dramatically reduce the number of points you throw away. And that is exactly where Manchester United have to improve, because United left last season with 71 points. Arsenal won the title with 85. That's a 14-point difference. 14 points. And when you look at a 38-game season, 14 points doesn't sound impossible, but it is enormous if you're constantly dropping points in matches you should be winning. So the question becomes, how does United find those 14 points? And I think there are 5 major areas. The first is obvious. United need to turn draws into wins. Last season, United drew 11 Premier League matches. That's almost 1 draw every 3 games. And this is where the mathematics becomes really interesting. A draw gives you 1 point. A win gives you 3. So every time United turn a draw into a win, that's 2 additional points. Turn 5 draws into wins, that's 10 extra points. Suddenly, you're not looking at a 71-point team anymore. You're getting much closer to the title-winning range. And this is why I don't think United necessarily need to become some unstoppable machine that wins every weekend. They just need to stop wasting so many opportunities, because title-winning teams don't necessarily win every game. They just lose fewer points over the course of the season. Look at Arsenal last season. 26 wins, 7 draws, 5 defeats, 85 points. That's not perfection. That's consistency. And that's what Manchester United need. The second thing United need is fewer defeats. And this is probably even more important. United lost 7 league matches last season. 7. And here's the problem. You can't expect to win the Premier League while constantly giving your rivals opportunities to pull away. Now, 5 defeats didn't stop Arsenal from winning the title. 4 didn't stop Liverpool. So I'm not saying United absolutely have to finish with 3 or 4 defeats. But if United can move from 7 defeats to 5, that's already a major improvement. And if some of those defeats become draws or wins, the points start adding up very quickly. Imagine a season where United finish with 26 wins, 7 draws, 5 defeats. That's 85 points. Exactly what Arsenal achieved last season. Now, I'm not saying that's automatically enough to win the 2026-27 Premier League, because another team could finish with 90 or 95. Football doesn't work like a fixed formula, but 85 points puts you in the conversation. And that's the target United need to be thinking about, not 71, not 75, not just finishing in the Champions League places, 85 plus. That's the level. And that brings me to the third thing. United need to become much harder to beat because you can't chase 85 or 90 points if you're constantly conceding goals and losing control of matches. Last season, United scored 69 goals. That's not terrible, but they conceded 50. And that gives you a very important clue. If you're conceding 50 goals, you are putting enormous pressure on your attack to rescue you. And that's dangerous over 38 matches because there will be days when your forwards don't score. There will be days when Bruno Fernandes has a quiet game. There will be days when your best attackers are injured. There will be days when the opponent simply sits deep and frustrates you. That's when your defense has to keep you alive. A title-winning team needs to be able to say, we didn't play well today, but we still got 3 points, or we couldn't win the game, but we refused to lose it. That mentality matters. And this is where Michael Carrick has one of his biggest challenges. Can he build a Manchester United side that doesn't collapse when the game becomes uncomfortable? Because that's the difference between a good team and a championship team. The fourth thing is midfield control. And this is where the new Manchester United becomes really interesting. Tielemans, Bruno, Santos, Mainu. There are different profiles, different qualities, different ways of controlling a match. But having good midfielders isn't enough. United need a midfield that can control games because if you're constantly chasing the ball, you're constantly defending. If you're constantly defending, you're eventually going to concede. And when you concede first, you're suddenly chasing the game again. And that's how teams lose points. That's how 7 defeats become 8, how 8 draws become 10, and suddenly the title race disappears. United need to become better at controlling the middle of the pitch. They need to slow games down when necessary, speed them up when necessary, protect a lead, respond after conceding, and most importantly, stop allowing matches to become chaotic when United are supposed to be in control. That's where Tielemans could be extremely important. That's where Bruno could become more dangerous. And that's where players like Santos and Mainu could give Carrick options throughout a long season. But there's still one more thing. And honestly, this might be the biggest one. United needs squad depth because winning the Premier League isn't about having a great starting 11. It's about having a great squad. 38 league matches, plus Champions League football, plus domestic competitions, plus international breaks, plus injuries, plus suspensions, plus fatigue. And then you reach February. That's when the real season begins. Everybody looks good in August. Everybody has energy. Everybody is optimistic. The real test comes when your first choice midfielder is injured, your striker is exhausted, your defender is suspended, and you have to play Manchester City 3 days later. That's when squad depth becomes everything. And United cannot afford to have a huge drop-off between the starting 11 and the bench. Because if Carrick has genuine options, he can rotate, he can manage fatigue, he can change games, he can respond to injuries, and he can keep players competing for their places. That's what I want to see, competition, not guaranteed positions. Now let's bring all of this together. Manchester United finished last season with 20 wins, 11 draws, 7 defeats, 71 points. To reach 85 points with 5 defeats, United would need 26 wins, 7 draws, 5 defeats. That's a massive improvement. But look at what that actually means. 6 more wins, 4 fewer draws, 2 fewer defeats. That's it. That's the mathematical difference between last season's 71 points and an 85-point season. And suddenly this doesn't sound completely impossible because United don't need to transform every single match. They need to transform the results of the matches where they currently drop points. That's the key. Instead of drawing a game, win it. Instead of losing a game, draw it. And instead of collapsing after conceding, stay in the match. Those small changes become enormous over 38 games. And that's why I think the opening months of the 2026-27 season are going to tell us a lot. United start away to Hull City, then Ipswich Town come to Old Trafford, then Everton away, and then Manchester City at Old Trafford. That's a very interesting opening because United don't have to win every one of those games to prove they're ready. But we should be watching the performances. Are they controlling matches? Are they creating enough chances? Are they protecting leads? Are they responding when they concede? Are they beating the teams they should beat? And when the big games arrive, can they compete? Because that's another part of the equation. You can't win the Premier League by beating only the teams below you. You have to take points from the teams around you. And this is where Manchester United need to become much more consistent. If United lose to Arsenal, then lose to City, then lose to Liverpool, then lose another 5 matches against teams they should be beating, the title race is over. But imagine a different scenario. United beat the teams they're expected to beat. They draw or win the difficult away games. They take points from their direct rivals. They don't collapse after going behind. And they finish the season with something around 85 to 90 points. Now we're talking about a genuine title challenge. And there's another reason I think this season could be different. United don't need to copy Arsenal. They don't need to copy City. They don't need to become Liverpool. They need to become a better version of themselves. The identity has to be clear. The midfield has to function. The attack has to create without Bruno doing everything. The defense has to become more reliable. The bench has to be strong enough. And Carrick has to make the right decisions when the season gets difficult, because the Premier League title isn't usually won by the team that looks the most exciting in August. It's won by the team that keeps collecting points when everybody else starts dropping them. That's the real test. And that's why I don't want Manchester United fans obsessing over one match. One result doesn't win the title. One signing doesn't win the title. One superstar doesn't win the title. Consistency does. And if we go back to those last 5 champions, that's the pattern I see. 93 points. 89, 90, 91, 92. The exact number changes, but the standard remains extremely high. And United finished on 71. So the mission for Carrick is simple to explain, but incredibly difficult to execute. Close the 14-point gap, reduce the defeats, turn draws into wins. Make Old Trafford a place teams fear again. Become more difficult to beat away from home, strengthen the squad, control matches better, and when the pressure arrives, don't break. Because if Manchester United can do those things, then I don't think the question should be, can United challenge for the Premier League? The question should be, why can't they? I'm not predicting that Manchester United will definitely win the title. That would be foolish. Arsenal just finished on 85 points. Manchester City finished on 78, and United finished on 71. There is still a gap, but the gap is measurable, and that's important because measurable problems can be attacked. 14 points isn't a mystery. 7 defeats isn't a mystery. 11 draws isn't a mystery. 50 goals conceded isn't a mystery. These are the numbers, and now Carrick has to change them. The 2026-27 Premier League season is coming, and I think Manchester United should have one target above everything else. Not just Champions League qualification, not just finishing third, not just looking better, compete for the title, because that's the standard. And if United can get themselves into that 85 to midpoint conversation, then maybe, just maybe, Manchester United won't be asking whether they're ready to challenge again. They'll be asking whether everyone else is ready for them.